Rocks fell like judgment from the cliff. Dust burst across the canyon road. Wagons skidded, mules shrieked, and men grabbed at reins and rifles. Mara Ellis threw her arms over her head as a boulder smashed the wheel beside her. Splinters stung her cheek. Someone yelled to hold the line. Another man cursed the river for roaring so loud he could not hear his own fear. Hands caught Mara's elbow and dragged her into the open. Burke Sloan's colors showed in the bandanas, gray as river rock. "Collateral stays tied," one called. "The owner says so." They hauled her toward the lead wagon where a short rope bound her wrists. Mara kept her face still. Panic made the world small. Numbers made it wide. She counted falling stones, the rhythm between strikes and the tilt of the road. A rope axe flashed. The cord at her wrists parted clean. A tall rider had stepped out of the dust, hat brim low, eyes steady like a surveyor's plumb line. He did not reach for her. He put the rope axe back on his belt and stood clear. "You can walk back to town," he said, voice calm over the noise. "Or you can come up trail and work for pay, food, and your own say." Sloan's men were shouting now, trying to see through the haze. The rider, Jonah Pike, did not hurry her. He only looked at Mara the way a man looks at a ridge measuring true north. Mara tasted grit. Go back to Sloan and be traded again. Go forward and be no one's claim. She listened for a pattern. The slide had settled. The river carried the rest. If she moved now, the open stretch to the switchback would lie clear for 9 heartbeats. "I choose the trail," she said. "Then step," Jonah answered. They moved, not running, just certain. Behind them, a shout broke high as a hawk's cry. A shot cracked. Stone chips sprang from the wall. Jonah lifted a hand and signaled left. They slid into a narrow crease where the cliff made shade. He gave her a coil of line to carry, light enough for speed, heavy enough to mean trust. "Name's Jonah Pike." "Mara Ellis." "Good. Say your choices out loud. That's the rule." "I chose," Mara said again, and kept walking toward the high country. Behind them the river roared, but ahead the trail opened like a promise in sunlight. They climbed out of the rock fall and onto a narrow shelf of road. Dust thinned. The river still thundered below, but the sound spread out and lost its teeth. Mara breathed through her nose and set her steps one by one, heel to toe like crossing sums on a page. Jonah kept an easy pace. He did not crowd her. He pointed with his chin to the coil she carried. "Keep that line tidy. It saves lives." "I can do tidy," Mara said. "I saw that," he said. "You counted the slide," she nodded. "My head works in numbers. Helps when folks are loud." "They were loud," he said. "And they were Sloan's." Mara's jaw tightened. "My father owed him for water rights. Dry summer, one bad harvest, and the well went to mud. Sloan offered easy flow. He took me instead when the notes came due." Jonah walked for a time without comment. Wind touched the cliff grass. "You're not a note," he said at last. "Here's the plain of it. I'm building a rope bridge over Silver Cut so ranchers and small outfits can reach the market. When the old ford washed out, the valley split clean in two. Folks have been paying Sloan's ferries and losing stock to the current." "Who owns your bridge?" Mara asked. "No one," he said. "That's the point. The valley owns it once it stands. We're paid with tolls until the anchor stones are squared away and the rope is retired. Then it's free with a jar marked repairs and reading." "Reading?" "Ledger lessons for kids and cowhands who want them," he said. "A ferry crew I knew did it. Got fewer bad deals after." They reached a bend where the shelf widened. From there the trail rose into scrub pine. Jonah stopped and looked back the way they'd come. "2 riders at the last switch. They won't press hard while the rocks are loose." Mara studied the slope. "The angle will slow them. We can gain a mile if we set a steady rate." "That's the speech of a foreman," Jonah said. "You still choosing the trail?" "I spoke it," she said. "Good, then here are the rules. No drunks, share loads, speak choices out loud." Mara hitched the coil higher and met his eyes. "I can keep rules." He tipped his hat once, simply. They started upward toward the work ahead together. They reached the cliff perch camp at sundown, a flat tongue of earth under a wall of red stone. Smoke rose from a cook fire, A canvas fly shook in the wind. 2 mules blinked at new faces. Jonah raised a hand. "Camp," he said. "We keep it orderly." People stepped from the shadows. A man with a ferryman's shoulders nodded first. "Name's Cal Whitlow," he said. "River took my wife last spring. I stayed to help folks cross more safely." 2 teen drovers stood together, all elbows and grit. "We're Lark and Boone," the girl said. "We drive supplies from the North Ridge. We do not drink on the job." A quiet woman sat by the rope bench, fingers quick. She lifted a strand of fiber and rolled it into a cord. "Naya," she said. "I twist and splice. Shoshone ways." Jonah tipped his hat toward Mara. "This is Mara Ellis. She chooses the trail. She works for pay and her own say." Mara felt every eye weigh her measure. She kept still, like balancing a ledger before ink touched paper. "I can tally loads. I can read slope and rate. I learn fast." Cal's mouth eased. "Numbers are short around here. You'll be welcome." Jonah walked to a plank on 2 posts. On it in charcoal were rules, plain words, no drunks. "Share loads. Speak choices out loud. Every hand eats. Every voice counts." He tapped the last line. "This is how we build without turning into Sloan." Lark snorted. "Sloan sent the road law after us last month for blocking a business," she spat. "His business." Boone pointed down valley. "He owns the supply road too, or acts like it. We buy nails at a markup made of spite." Mara's mind set to work. "Then we must waste nothing. Count every peg and pin. If a rope sings, we shift the angle, not our temper." Naya's eyes warmed. "Good ear," she said. "We listen to the line like a river." Jonah handed Mara a ledger tied in twine. "Start with what we have, then tell me what we lack. Speak the number true." Mara sat by the fire, wrote neatly, and read it back so all could hear. 3 coils half worn. 1 new 8-iron pins. 4 anchors cut, 2 to shape. Meal for 2 days. "We'll need more before week's end." Wind moved through the pines. Work waited. Mara felt ready. Dawn came sharp and cold. Work began with lines in sight. Jonah set the tripod and leveled the scope. Cal marked distances with a stripped willow stake. Lark and Boone hauled pins and a hand sledge.
Naya twisted fiber into a cord and hummed a river song. Mara watched the water.
Silvercut ran fast where the cliff pressed the bank, then slowed in a long bend below. The surface looked smooth, but she saw the hidden pull. She pointed with her pencil. "There is an eddy under that darker patch. The swirl will tug the cable toward the weak seam." Jonah looked again. "Show me." They scrambled down a goat path to the low rocks. Mara tossed a tuft of grass and counted. 1, 2, 3, drawn sideways and down. "If we set the anchor here, the line will sing and creep." She walked 6 paces upstream, measured by boot. "Here the force meets stone head on. 6 feet makes the difference," Jonah tested with the staff. The push felt clean. He smiled a little. 6 feet to quiet a river, he said. "We'll move it," they dug. Cal swung the pick. Boone and Lark stacked flat rocks. Jonah cut into the knuckle of bedrock until the notch was square. Naya brought fresh cord and bound the timbered dead man. Mara chalked figures on a slate and checked each measure aloud so all could hear. When they set the first cable, the valley listened. The line stretched. It started to sing, a high keen like a kettle. Mara frowned. "Hold," she called. "Ease 3 turns. Shift the angle on the mule gin." Jonah nodded. "You heard the note?" "It rose," she said. "Wrong key." They eased, turned, and tightened again. The song died to a low hum that felt like a cat purring in the bones. The span settled true. If you're in, tap like so the next parts reach you. By noon, hands shook from effort. Cal built the donkey gin from a stump, a wheel, and 2 lengths of axle. The mules leaned, the leather creaked, and the heavy coil paid out smoothly. "Good," Jonah said. "No hot tempers. Only work." Evening brought stew. Beans, plain salt pork, onion, and hope. Jonah ladled. Mara tallied bowls faster than he could fill them. 7 full, 1/2 too late, she said, pencil tapping. Lark laughed. "She counts our spoons," Mara smiled back. "Counting keeps us fed. Waste nothing. Let the bridge take the strain, not us." Night settled over camp. Stars came out sharp and the cliff held the wind like a shield. The fire licked low. Boots dried near the coals and rope lay in loose halos to cool. Work had taken the bite out of everyone's talk. It felt like a house after chores, quiet, ready for rest. Jonah stepped away and came back with something closed in his fist. He set it by Mara's ledger without a word. Brass caught the firelight. A small plumb bob worn at the nose with a line tied through the eye. Mara looked up. He did not meet her gaze. He only tapped the weight once with a knuckle and sat down again. Gift given, no ceremony. She understood. A tool is trust. She touched the metal and felt its pull. Naya poured tea from a blackened pot. Hands warm, mind's clear, she said. Lark and Boone argued in whispers about mule names. Cal mended a strap and hummed a tune. Mara opened her ledger. I can show a quicker code, she said to Jonah, voice mild so it would not break the peace. For rations and coil counts. She drew 4 marks that made a small fence. This stands for 5. We group by 5s. Jonah tried it on a scrap. He nodded once. Clean, he said. Teach it to all. Now you teach me, she said. A knot I can tie with one hand when the other is busy. He picked up a short line. Bowline, he said. A loop that will not slip and will not jam. His hands moved slowly so she could learn the path. Rabbit comes out of the hole around the tree back in the hole. He put the rope in her hands and looked away so there was room to try or fail. She fumbled, breathed, and tried again. The loop formed true. She pulled. It held. A small thing, but her chest loosened as if a tight strap had given way. Lark tossed a chip into the fire. If that bridge holds, Mara, we're charging you extra to cross it. Mara kept a straight face. Then I will charge you extra to count the toll. Boone grinned. Cal chuckled. Even Jonah's mouth tilted. Joke clean as a set peg. The night felt lighter still. A good camp is a promise, Naya said. Keep it and the river will keep you. Morning work began before the sun cleared the rim. Frost cracked under boots. Jonah checked each anchor with a hammer tap. Cal set the mule team on the gin. Naya tested the splice where the cord met the cable. Lark and Boone argued about who had the better arm for throwing a pilot line. The gorge lay open between 2 stone teeth, all roar and mist. We need a messenger line across, Jonah said. He held up a pine dart with a light cord tied neatly behind the point. Wind's tricky. Throw on a lull. Mara watched the cliff grass. It leaned, stood, leaned again. She counted under her breath to find the pattern. 3 beats strong, 1 beat soft, she said. Throw on the soft. Lark rolled her shoulder and grinned. Count me in. Mara raised a hand. Now, Lark let fly. The dart curved high, kissed a gust, and slid toward the far rim. It fell short, rattling on rock. We try again, Jonah said, calm as a level bubble. Boone took a turn. The dart spun, wobbled, and landed in the river, tugging the light cord downstream until Cal hauled it back, wet and useless. Mara kept counting. The grass told the truth if you listened. Soft in 4, 3, 2, now Lark threw clean. The dart slipped through the quiet pocket and thocked into a stump on the far side. The line trembled in Mara's hands, alive with the river's pull but sure. Good, Jonah said. He did not cheer. He nodded to each of them, then to the task. Haul slow. Keep the angle. No heroics, they pulled. The messenger line drew the heavier tag line, and that drew the cable bit by bit, like threading a giant's needle. The mules leaned steadily on the gin, hooves set. The cable rose out over the gorge, iron humming a low, careful note. Mara checked the ledger as they worked. 2 pins left for the near side. 4 for the far. We will need timber for cribbing before the week's end. She looked to Jonah. I speak that choice. Send for wood tomorrow or go short and risk slip. Spoken, he said. We send for wood. By noon they had enough line to raise a narrow catwalk. Planks laid end to end made a trial path roped on both sides. Jonah crossed first, slow and easy. He carved a waymark into a pine with his knife, just a small arrow and the day's count. So folks know where they stand, he said. Clouds pushed from the south, warm for the season. The river changed tone, deeper like a drum under the song. Mara felt it and tucked the sound into her mind. Afternoon stretched thin. Work found its rhythm, talk small and steady. Lark and Boone took turns on the gin. Cal set cribstones like a quiet prayer. Naya's fingers never stopped. Twist, wet, pinch, pull. Cord grew from fiber as if the camp were making its own roots. Mara walked the line with her slate. She listened for the note the cable made and checked each tie with a tug. When a knot looked proud, she eased it down. When the plank seam showed daylight, she pressed a wedge and marked the spot for a true fix later. Jonah watched without hovering. If she met his eye, he only tipped his hat and let her keep the lead. They paused at midday. The stew pot held little, but Lark found a carrot saved for luck. She split it 5 ways with the pocket knife her mother had given her. For crossing, she said. Boone rolled his eyes but took his share. Cal passed around a tin of salt. Naya poured water flavored with pine tips. It tasted like cold, clean thought. Tell us your tricks, Mara, Boone said. How do you see what the river hides? It talks, she said. You look slant, not straight. The shine lies. The edges tell the truth. She drew a quick sketch on the slate, arrows for pull, dots for eddies, and showed where to stand when the line went tight. Boone nodded, serious now. Clouds built slowly over the high ridge, gray with soft bellies. The air felt different, like the room before someone speaks a hard thing. Jonah squinted south. Warm front, he said. Snow higher up will turn to melt. Not today, but soon. Mara tucked that beside the drum-deep tone she heard. We should double-check the near anchor, she said. A slide could jar it. We'll do it before dark, Jonah answered. They set to again. A rancher from Mid-Valley rode in with a crate. He looked like a man who knew loss. A gift, he said. Nails and 2 pinches of coffee. My boy broke his arm at the old ford last fall. You build that bridge and I'll set a jar for repairs on my counter. We'll earn every nail, Cal said. Dusk came earlier under the cloud. The river's voice grew thick. Somewhere upstream, a calf bawled once, thin and far, then the sound cut off. The camp went still, all listening. The cry came again, higher, then the river swallowed it. Jonah and Mara were on their feet before anyone spoke. Cal grabbed a lantern. Lark and Boone took coils and hooks. Slackline, Jonah said. We throw from the catwalk and fix to the juniper. He pointed to a stout tree wedged in rock. Keep words short. No heroics. Mara tied the one-handed bowline, fingers steady. Naya worked beside her, splinting the line with fresh cord where it showed wear. The lantern showed a brown shape pinned under a lip of current. Only the nose broke the surface, gulping, slipping, fighting without power. Calf, Cal said. His jaw clicked. If it rolls, it drowns. We go now, Mara said. She clipped the line through her belt in a chest loop. Naya threw it around her like a hug. Belay tight. Give me 1 arm of slack on my word and haul when I call 2. Jonah knelt and checked each knot with his thumb. Trust the line. Trust our timing. Keep your head above the lesson. Mara nodded. The catwalk shivered under their boots. She slid onto the slack line on her belly, toes pointed downstream, chin up, arms wide. The water grabbed her legs. She breathed out and kept light and crawled inches, 1 palm, 1 elbow, 1 palm. The calf bawled, weak. Its eyes rolled white. Mara reached, missed, reached again, and the river shoved her sideways. 1, she called. The line loosened a hand. She drifted, found the rhythm, and hooked her elbow over the calf's neck. Easy, little one, she said, voice small against the roar. She worked the chest hitch under its forelegs, fingers numb, muscles burning. The rope jammed against slick hide, then slid home. 2, she shouted. The line went tight. The world lurched. Water hammered her ribs. She held the calf close and let the river spend itself while the team hauled. The slackline sang a hard note, then steadied. Inch by inch they came up, hip to knee to plank, hands grabbed. Lark pulled the calf by the withers. Boone caught Mara's belt. Cal heaved them both onto the boards. The calf coughed, shook, and bleated. Naya threw a blanket over it. Camp voices rose in cheers. Jonah's hand hovered, then landed on Mara's shoulder. Good work, he said. Clean and brave. Mara lay on the planks, chest heaving, and smiled softly at the dark. Night settled again, softer after the rescue. The calf slept under a blanket by the warm stones. The river's roar turned slow and even, like a big animal breathing. Camp lights sank low. People spoke in half voices as if words could slip and fall if pushed too hard. Mara rubbed feeling back into her hands. The skin at her wrist showed rope marks, old and new. She let them sting. Pain could be a ledger, too. It told the truth when pride would not. Jonah set a small pot near the edge of the coals and poured tin cups of coffee, cut thin with water. You kept your head, he said. I kept your rules, she answered. Say choices out loud. Trust the line, he nodded. For a while they only listened. A single pine creaked in the cold. Naya sang a tune with no words and then went to her bedroll. Lark and Boone argued about nothing and then slept where they sat. Cal checked the calf twice and pulled the blanket higher. I used to think law was a shelter, Mara said at last. But paper twists. Numbers are clean and even they can be bent if the man reading them wants it so. Jonah poked the fire. Law's just numbers until someone stands on it. Mara turned the brass plumb bob in her palm. My father called me a hex after my mother died. Every bad season he counted on me. When the notes came due, he wrote my name in the margin and said it balanced the page. She looked at the dark river. I believed him longer than I should have. Jonah's jaw worked. I walked away from a railroad crew after a bad survey. I missed a true line by a handspan. A culvert is set wrong. The next storm took a man under. His brother never forgave me and he was right not to. I carry that mark. Mara watched the coals fall and open like little doors of light. So what do we do with marks? We build where they show, he said. We put our weight on the truth we learned. She nodded. Then tomorrow we check the near anchor first. Spoken, he said. Rest now. Mara lay down with the plumb bob in her fist and the rule in her chest. The bridge hummed like a promise in the night. They broke camp before first light and took the upper road to town. Clouds hung low and warm. The river sounded thick under the cliffs. By mid-morning, the roofs of Silvercut showed ahead. Market day filled the square. Wagons stood nose to tail. A brass scale rang and children chased a chicken. A preacher set chairs under the cottonwoods for Sunday. Jonah stopped at the edge. We go in plain, he said. Buy what we need. Mara tied her hair with twine and put the plumb bob in her pocket. I will speak only what is true, she said. They moved through the crowd. Cal traded rope for flour. Lark and Boone bought nails and counted each one out loud. Naya picked up fiber and a tin of salve. Mara checked prices twice and wrote them with the new code. Then Burke Sloan stepped into the street. He wore a clean coat and a grin too wide. 2 deputies flanked him. Sloan lifted a paper so all could see. By right of deed, he called. The river lot and the crossing belong to the Sloan Syndicate. Any structure built without our leave is theft. Any person aiding is a party to it. Murmurs rose. Men looked at their boots. Women set their water jars down hard. Jonah said nothing. He folded his arms and watched the crowd, not Sloan. Let me see the deed, Mara said, calm but carrying. Sloan laughed. This one reads numbers? Read and blush. Mara spread the paper on the grain table. Bearings, lengths, landmarks. The letters looked clean. The survey marks did not. She set the plumb bob on the map and aligned the string to the north. The second bearing says 1 degree east of north from the cottonwood stump, she said. But the stump stands below true north. A man could miss once. He would not miss 3 corners unless he wished to steal ground. Silence gathered like weather. The blacksmith stepped closer. She right, Sloan? Sloan's smile thinned. You calling me a liar? I am calling the numbers bent, Mara said. I will swear that before any judge who still knows a compass from a pocket watch. The preacher set a hand on the deed. Truth stands where it is set. A child clapped once, then stopped, eyes turned. The square shifted. Jonah let the truth land like a stake driven home. Sloan's face went stiff. He folded the deed slowly like a man putting away a snake that might bite him. Fine words, he said. But I hold notes and notes hold fire. He turned so all could hear. By sundown Sunday, the girl comes back to my camp and signs a work bond, or her father's shack burns to ash. That is not a threat. It is a clock. The square breathed out as one. A dog barked and then hid under a wagon. The preacher stepped forward. You will not. Sloan lifted 2 fingers. The deputies touched their rifles. The river law answers to me, he said. The supply road, too. Cross me and you buy nails at triple and wait 2 weeks for flour. Jonah did not reach for his hat brim or the knife at his belt. He just said, We heard you. He looked to Mara, not to Sloan. Your choice stands? Mara felt the crowd like a tide. Some eyes begged her to fold. Some begged her to fight. My choice stands, she said. I work for pay and my own say. Sloan smiled again, all teeth and no warmth. Then count your days. He walked off, boots loud, deputies in his wake. His coat swung like a door closing. The square found its voice in bits and pieces. A ranch wife pressed a sack into Mara's hands. Dried apples, she said. For the rope school when you make it. The blacksmith offered a hammer at half price and said nothing more. The storekeeper would not meet their eyes. Jonah bought what they needed. He paid fare and left receipts. We haul timber tomorrow, he said to Cal. 2 trips before the weather turns. Cal nodded once. Posse will ride us, he warned. Then we keep to work, Jonah said. We speak choices, not fear. On the road back, the valley felt different, as if a shadow had stretched across the sun. Lark rode ahead, watching the high trail. Boone counted clouds out loud to keep his temper down. Naya tied a small blue string at the catwalk start. For luck, she said. Luck follows effort. At camp, Mara set the plumb bob on the rule plank and read each line again. No drunks, share loads. Speak choices out loud. Every hand eats. Every voice counts, she added quietly so only the fire could hear. Hold the line under pressure. Jonah heard anyway. Spoken, he said. We hold. Warm rain began before dawn. It tapped the canvas, then hit hard as thrown peas. Snowmelt ran like sweat down the cliffs. The river changed voice, deeper and meaner. Mara stood at the bank and measured. Mark on the boulder, mark on the route, water climbed a hand each hour. Flood day, Jonah said. No speeches work, they split into teams. Cal checked the mule gin and set chocks under the wheels. Lark and Boone built cribbing boxes from scrap timbers, notched fast with a hatchet. Naya soaked the cord so it would bite and not burn. Mara read the anchors, speaking each figure so the camp could hear. Near stone, true. Far stone, willing but tired. We had a dead man here and here, wind pushed warm. The river threw logs. When one struck the lower cable, the line shuddered. Jonah raised a hand. Hold your tempers. The river is only doing its job. They hauled gravel and grain sacks to weigh the cribbing. Every sack counted. Mara tallied and did not lose the number when the spray stung her skin. 17 down, she said. 3 to finish the first box. The water rose. Planks on the catwalk darkened, then gleamed. Cal set a bucket line from the spring to the trench to keep the near bank from turning to soup. Lark ran the line like a captain. Hand throw, she called. Boone answered without complaint. A thick branch rode the foam and speared the rail. The catwalk sagged a breath. Naya was there first, knife quick. She cut clean and shoved the branch back into the boil. Do not give the river a handle, she said. Dead man ready, Boone shouted. Haul, Jonah answered. They sank the buried anchor and hitched it to the main line with a fat splice. The cable's pitch lifted and steadied. The hum said hold. Mara let herself breathe once, and rain turned to a sheet. The world narrowed to wet wood, gray water, and work between. Mara felt fear brush past her like a stranger at the market. She let it pass. We will pin the far stone before the crest, she said. Speak it. Spoken, Jonah said. Set the pulley haul. They built the haul from block and tackle, a double purchase for heavy work. Mules leaned. People leaned. The bridge leaned into the storm and did not yield. Keep timing, Mara called. We ride the rise, not fight it. Rain hammered the camp until every seam leaked and every rope drank. The river swelled a hand higher, then another. Foam curled around the anchor stones. Jonah checked the far bank through the mist and raised 2 fingers. Haul slow. They set the pulley haul again. Cal kept the mule team steady. Lark watched the wheel and called the rhythm. Pull, breathe. Pull, breathe. Boone fed the tail through his palms and kept it from burning. Naya braced the splice with a wrap that squeaked tight. Mara crouched near the stone. The catwalk pitched under her knees. She set the plumb bob and read the line as if it were a pulse on a sick child. The hum told a simple truth. The anchor would hold if they pinned the second wedge before the crest topped the juniper root. She put her mouth near Jonah's ear. We have 20 minutes. Spoken, he said. Set the pin. The wedge was a block of oak cut clean and greased. Boone slid it into the gap while Mara kept the iron pin lined true. The river hit them with spray and tried to turn hands into fists. Easy, she said. Open hands. Let the tool do the bite. The first hammer strike jumped. The second found home. The third rang like a bell. The pin seated a thumb's width. The cable's voice dropped half a note and steadied. A log rode the brown water and slammed into the downstream cribbing. Wood grated. The span twitched. Cal swore, then set his shoulder against the brace. Need a shore prop, he grunted. Lark was already there with a cut pole. She wedged it under the sag and leaned her weight. Give me an inch, she said through her teeth. Naya jammed a second wedge. Now, the sag lifted. The catwalk stopped shivering and went back to a steady tremble, the kind that says working, not failing. Rain grew harder. The far bank blurred to a gray wall. Mara felt the push change from shove to surge. Crest coming, she called. Hold your places. When I say drop, you drop the slack 3 inches and no more. They waited, soaked and quiet. The river rose in one long breath. Mara counted beats against her teeth. Now drop. The line eased, drank the crest, and settled back with a deep hum. We're holding, Jonah said. Stay on it. Rain eased a little, not in kindness, but like a fighter catching breath between rounds. Mist clung to the gorge. The catwalk hummed a low, steady note. Every hand shook from effort, yet no one let go. Mara checked the ledger and its oilcloth. Ink held. Numbers stayed true. Near stone pinned. Far stone pinned. Cribbing firm. Slack measured. She looked at the river and listened. The tone said hold, but a new sound rode under it. Hoofbeats on wet rock, distant and mean. Lark pointed up the switchback. Riders. Jonah turned once, just enough to see, then faced the work again. Count them. 5, Boone said. No, 6. Sloane's gray bandanas. We keep to rules, Jonah said. No drunks. Share loads. Speak choices out loud. And one more for today. No one fights on the bridge. Cal set his jaw. They'll try to cross. They'll try to take, Naya said. She wrapped a final splice and stood, calm as a held breath. Mara scanned the span. The near rail could be cut and dropped to lighten the strain. The mid-planks were pegged, but the third section could swing free if a pin lifted. She spoke it. We can drop a sacrificial span to strand them if we stage the hinge now. Jonah nodded once. Spoken, I'll prep the hinge. Cal set a safety line across the near posts. Lark, Boone, clear tools from the third section. Naya, mark our cut points with a blue cord. They moved like a single mind. Lark scooped hammers, wedges, and the precious new nails. Boone rolled the spare cord and tossed it back from the rail. Cal ran a belly-high safety line so no one would step wrong in the press. Naya tied 3 bright marks where knives would go clean. The hoofbeats grew louder. Voices echoed on stone. Sloane's men called out, laughing too much. The rain returned in thin sheets that made the world shine like steel. Mara set her hands on the cool planks and felt the tremor of water. She spoke for the camp and for herself. We hold the line. We do not break for fear, Spoken, Jonah said. He drove a short pin halfway, a hinge waiting for the right breath. On my mark, we dropped the third. The riders came into view on the far rim, dark shapes against a moving silver world. Their laughter slid thin across the flooded gap. Sloane's men reined in at the far posts and took in the scene. The swollen river, the narrow catwalk, the wet ropes humming like bees. One rider cupped his hands and shouted, "Stand down! The crossing belongs to Sloane. We'll take your lines and your ledger girl both." Jonah did not answer. He set his boot near the half-driven pin and met Mara's eyes. She read the plan in that look, the cut, the hinge, the drop. He raised his hand to the camp, fingers steady. "Hold your places. No one crowds the center." Two riders pushed onto the catwalk. Their horses balked at the tremble and the spray. Hooves slipped. The men cursed and slid off to lead on foot. Far behind, Sloane's laugh floated thin. "Walk it, boys. Rope men can't stare you down." Mara stepped to the near post and felt the line's pulse. The span could bear two men. It could not bear their pride. "Jonah," she said, voice even. "Drop on 3. "On your count," he answered. She raised her hand. 1. The first rider stepped onto the third section. The hinge under Jonah's pin was the only thing making that section a bridge and not a door. 2. Spray gusted. The second rider put weight where the planks were slick as fish skin. 3. Jonah struck the short pin once. The hinge gave. The third section swung like a trap, down and out, tethered by a safety line so it would not vanish. The riders spilled to their knees, grabbed the rail, and froze with open water yawning below. Their curses turned to thin prayers. "Back off the span," Jonah called, still calm. "You're stranded. Go home while you can walk." On the far rim, Sloane swore and waved his men. One tried to throw a lariat to snag the safe rail. The loop slapped uselessly against wet rope and slid into the flood. Another reached for a pistol. Jonah flicked a coil. His line snapped across and wrapped the man's wrist like a friendly snake that had changed its mind. A quick tug sent the pistol skittering into the brown water. "No shooting on my river," Jonah said. Mara did not watch the rest. She turned to the work that would save them. "Team to me," she called. Final pin on the far stone. "We cross light 2 at a time. Lark, you're on wedges. Boone, haul tail. Cal, mind the mule, Gin." Naya set 3 blue marks for the drive. The river lifted its voice close to crest. Mara set her jaw. "We finish this." Spray came cold as needles. The river climbed to the blue mark Naya had tied. The catwalk shook, but the line kept a hum that meant work, not break. Mara set the last oak wedge by the far stone. The gap was a mouth waiting for a firm word. "Wedges," she called. Lark slid one into her palm. Boone steadied the block. Cal leaned on the mule gin and kept the pull smooth. "Pin," Mara said. Naya placed the iron, greased and ready. Mara lined it with the plumb bob string, checked north by habit, then planted her feet. 3 strikes, she told herself. Clean, then cleaner. The first blow rang high and skated. She breathed. The second bit. The river rose a hand and slapped her shins cold. The third strike landed home. The pin seated half a thumb. Again, Jonah called from the hinge. On the far rim, Sloane shouted orders that sounded smaller now, like a man yelling through rain. Mara struck 3 more times, each a promise. The pin sank flush. The cable's hum dropped to a deep note that felt like a bell under the skin. "Pinned," she said. "Haul and take up slack," Jonah answered. They eased the haul line. The span settled, not sagging, but lying itself down like a horse choosing to stand. The crest climbed past the juniper root, rolled, and then lost heart. Water still ran hard, but the wild edge broke. On the far side, 2 stranded riders crawled back to the rock, cursing. Sloane's rope man tried one last cast. The loop hit nothing. He looked at the river, then at the still faces on the near bank, and lowered his hand. Jonah lifted the fallen section with the safety line and pinned it temporarily. "No crossing today," he said to Sloane's crew. "You step on, you swim." Sloane's grin was gone. He flicked water from his hat and turned his horse. "This is not finished," he said, but the words had no weight. The men followed him up the switchback, smaller with each turn. Rain thinned to mist. The bridge stood steady. Boots squelched. Hands all shook out the ache, then met in quick claps, not for show, but to let fear go. Mara touched the pin and felt the truth of it. "We held," she said. "We did," Jonah answered. "Now we make it belong to everyone." By afternoon, the rain had slipped away, leaving a clean, wet shine on every rock. Steam rose off the planks. The river still ran high, but its voice had softened. Riders from the valley began to appear on both rims. Ranch wives with baskets, hands from small outfits. The store boy with a borrowed hat. They had heard what happened. Jonah stood at the near posts and waited.
He did not call the meeting.
People came because the bridge stood, and that was its own bell today. Cal set the rescued calf near the warm stone so folks could see life given back. Lark and Boone stacked tools in plain sight. Naya tied a blue thread to the rule plank and smoothed her hair as if for Sunday. Mara laid a fresh board across 2 crates. On it she wrote in dark letters, Charter. Below she printed simple lines. Tolls held in common until anchors are paid. No man owns the crossing, every hand eats, every voice counts. The blacksmith read each line aloud so the shy would hear. The preacher nodded once. Who speaks for the bridge? He asked. No one, Jonah said. It speaks for itself. I set lines. I do not set crowns, Mara lifted her chin. Then let the valley speak. We formed a cooperative today. Each ranch, ferry, and shop puts a small share into the box. Tolls stay low and clear. A jar sits by the posts marked repairs and reading. When the rope is paid and the stones are square, the toll ends. The jar remains. A widow from the north bench stepped forward. My boys cross here to school if it stands. I pledge oats and $1 a month. The blacksmith tapped his hammer on the board. I pledge iron and 2 nails for every 10 I sell. Hands went up, small promises, but many. Lark's eyes shone. Boone looked like a man who had just found a true trail. Naya tied another blue thread, this one around her wrist. Sloane's name hung in the air and then fell silent. The crowd turned to Jonah. He set his palm on the charter. Hear me true, he said. No one owns the crossing, least of all me. Mara took a nail and drove it through the top line, steady and sure. The board bit wood. A cheer rose, strong and clean as new rope drawn tight. The storm broke for good the next day. The sun warmed the wet stone. The bridge gave a soft hum like a hive pleased with its own order. People began to cross in 2s and 3s. A girl carried a slate and a stub of chalk. A boy pushed a cart with 2 loaves. A rancher led a lame mare with a wrapped leg. Each person paused to read the board Mara had nailed. Some touched the wood with their fingertips as if to thank it. At the near posts, a small jar sat on a shelf Cal had built from scrap. Lark carved words in the lid with a pocket knife, for repairs and reading. She blew the dust from the letters and set the lid straight. Boone dropped the first coin, his own, and cleared his throat like it tasted brave. Soon the jar clicked with more coins, a few buttons, and 1 river stone shaped almost like a heart. Mara started a ledger under the fly. She made 3 neat columns, toll, gift, work. When a man could not pay, she wrote his name under work and the task he offered, hauling gravel, shaping pegs, sweeping the catwalk at dawn. Every voice counts, she said, and meant it in numbers too. Naya set a low bench at the edge of the shade. After midday, she taught knots to whoever wished. Old hands learned a new hitch. Small fingers practiced the bowline until it flowed. Cal showed how to listen to the river's mood. Lark kept a list for those who wanted to learn figures with Mara when the sun went down. Jonah walked the span with a slow gaze. He carved a small arrow in a pine each evening, a waymark and a count, then stood alone for a time with the river's song. Some said he was planning the next ridge or the next valley. Some said he was measuring whether to stay. Mara felt the question too. She touched the brass plumb bob in her pocket and looked at the valley. The charter board held firm. The jar gathered small hopes. Children skipped across to school without fear. The world had shifted a little toward the right. That night she stood by the fire with her ledger. Choice comes soon, she said to herself, and then aloud for the rule to hear. Stay and build or ride on and map new lines. The bridge hummed an answer only she could hear. Morning brought a sky scrubbed clean. Children crossed with slates under their arms. A ranch wife carried a basket of eggs and set 2 aside for the jar. Cal watered the rescued calf and laughed when it butted his knee. Lark posted a list for evening lessons. Boone whittled pegs as if each one were a promise. Near noon, a rider came from the north with a paper in his vest. He tipped his hat to Mara and Jonah. "Message from Bitterroot Pass," he said. "Snow slides took the old rope. Folks need a span before winter shuts the trail." He looked at Jonah. "They say you're the hand for it." Jonah thanked him and read slowly. The words were plain: good pay, work, leave within a week. He folded the paper once and kept his face still. "You going?" Boone asked, blunt as ever. "Not my choice alone," Jonah said. He turned to Mara in the quiet that followed. "I can build there. I can build here. My rule is the same either way. Speak your choice out loud." Mara walked to the charter board. She touched the nail she had driven and felt the wood answer. Across the span, the jar lid clicked as someone added a coin. Naya taught a boy the bowline one more time until it held. The bridge hummed steadily, like a hearth in a house that would not fail. "My father used to say the valley decides who stays," Mara said, but that was fear talking. She slid the plumb bob from her pocket and let it hang. The point found center without fuss. Weight tells the truth when words spin. Cal watched her with kind eyes. "You have a head for keeping things straight," he said. "Whatever comes, this place stands better with you in it." Lark nodded hard. "And with Jonah." Jonah did not step closer. He made room for the answer. "You owe no one," he said. "Not me, not this valley. Choice is the only clean bond." Mara looked at the river, the children, the jar, and the marks Jonah carved in pine. "Home is work you choose twice," she said softly. "Once for need. Once for love." Evening drifted in with stove smoke and wet sage. The valley listened. A teacher from the far bench asked when the school would open. Mara smiled. "Soon," she said. "Very soon." Sun leaned low and turned the gorge to copper. The bridge stood sure and still. People gathered as if the day had circled to an answer. The charter board waited. The jar's lid clicked now and then like a clock set to hope. Jonah faced the valley. "I won't be the owner," he said. "I set lines. I don't set crowns." Mara stepped to the post with a strip of rivergrass she had braided at noon. She looked at Jonah, then at the span and the people on both rims. "I speak my choice," she said, clear and plain. "I stay, I build. I teach. No one owns me, but I will stand with you." She took Jonah's wrist and knotted the grass band once, twice, 3 times, snug and simple as a good splice. "Work and word," she said. He closed his hand over the knot, rough palm hiding green. For a long breath neither spoke. The river did all the talking anyone needed. The preacher raised his chin. "Let the valley vote the cooperative," he said. Hands rose like wheat in the wind. A cheer rolled across the cut. Cal wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and laughed at himself. Lark banged a pan. Boone tried to look stern and failed. Naya tied a blue thread to the charter's nail, then to her own wrist. Jonah set his knife to a pine and carved a final mark, a small circle around the day's arrow. "Count closed," he said. "The crossing belongs to its keepers." Mara opened the ledger and wrote on the first clean page, "School fund started, tolls shared, work oath sworn." She added a line for herself, "Home chosen, season turned." Wagons rolled safely across the hum of rope. Children carried slates and sometimes a pie to share. The jar was filled and emptied and filled again. A lame mare heeled and pulled a cart. Men who had never trusted numbers sat at the ledger bench and learned to read their own names straight. Sloane's ferries waited at their posts idle as stones. His men rode elsewhere to sell their fear and found fewer buyers. On a fall morning, Mara looked up from her sums and smiled at the sound of feet on soundboards. Legend had its start that day and kept walking step by steady step, until it was simply history. If this bridge held your heart, like, subscribe, ring the bell, then comment, stand with you. The next story's waiting on screen.